And we are live, and welcome everybody to episode number 113 of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. And hello, Shannon. Welcome back. Oh, I'm looking the wrong way.
I'm looking that way. Okay.
Yes.
We're
Hello.
switched. We're switched tonight.
I did switch us. I am keeping things fresh. So yeah, hi, and welcome back.
Thanks, Tim. Hey, I missed everyone. I missed you. I missed being here. But I had to take a little mental health break, and it was much needed. And
Yes.
mentally, I'm feeling a lot better. I just need my physical to catch up with it. But I'm doing well. I missed you. I love you. I love everyone. It's great to be back.
We love you too, and we missed you. And this show is created as a safe space where cancer patients, survivors, and supporters come together from all around the world right here to share their stories and connect, as well as find resources for healing, hope, and resilience. My name is Tim Sloan, a 17-plus year cancer warrior, chronic myeloid leukemia warrior, host of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, also host of Showing Up Perspectives on Invisible Illnesses, which debuted last night with our guest, Andrea Sanchez. So thank you, Andrea, for doing that. And that show is going to be a monthly show, and it's going to be the first Tuesday of every month at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So make sure to check it out next month, July 2nd, because what else would you want to do before you celebrate July 4th? Watch a show about perspectives on invisible illnesses, for sure. And if you want to find out any information about Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, the books, the event that's coming up October 5th and 6th, you can go to perspectivesoncancer.com. And over to you, Shannon.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Shannon Lee Sin. I'm Tim's co-host for this show. And I am a 12-plus year colorectal cancer survivor. I was diagnosed at the age of 29 with stage 3C after presenting symptoms from when I was 17. So please, if you're 45 or older, have any symptoms at any age or family history, please make sure you do your colonoscopy. Once again, thank you for joining us tonight and showing up. Please let us know where you're tuning in from around the world and what is your connection to cancer. We so appreciate you being here. We want this to be a conversation. We also encourage you to connect with each other in the chat and hit the share button to let your friends, family, and colleagues know about this show.
Definitely do one or all of the above of those things. We really appreciate you spreading the word about the show. And before we bring our awesome guest on tonight, who I met, well, I'm not really sure what I can say or can say, but in a group helping create content to educate people who were recently diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia or have had side effects of chronic myeloid leukemia. So really excited to bring her on. But before we bring her on, a few reminders. You can find a volume 1 and volume 2 of Perspectives on Cancer, the book, if you go to perspectivesoncancer.com. Also, the in-person Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer event is coming up in just a few months on October 5th and 6th. You can register for the event at perspectivesoncancer.com. I had a really great call with somebody today about potential partnership, which can't say anything yet, but hopefully it all will work out. And we're also still looking for sponsors for the event. So if you would like to sponsor, we have 3 different sponsorship packages. This is a great way to get the word out about your brand, about yourself, about your business or nonprofit organization. We can do that both through social media and in person at the event in different ways. So please reach out if you're interested in finding out more information about that. And back to you, Shannon.
If you're ready for our guest tonight. Still warming up. Sorry, I'm a little rusty.
You're doing great. Keep going.
If you're ready for our guest tonight, please type in the chat, heck yeah. If you tune in with us every week, you know our tradition. Tonight, we're going to have a conversation with someone who's been through 2 cancers, cervical cancer and chronic myeloid leukemia. It is National Cancer Survivors Month, so we're going to talk about her story, survivorship, clinical trials, and so much, much more. Let's welcome Lynne Dagata to the show.
Hi,
Thank you
Lynne.
for having me. Hi.
Hey,
How are
Lynne.
you?
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Showing Up family. And thanks so much for showing up for us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And we want to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in, whether you're here live or on the replay. Yolanda is here. She says hello, Tim and Shannon. So welcome, Yolanda. It's so great to have you here. Let us know, what is your connection to cancer? And Michelle is also here. She says, great to be here tonight with this amazing group. And Michelle was just a guest on the show recently. So thanks for being here, Michelle. And Yolanda says she's tuning in from Texas. Yeah, and I'm tuning in from Pennsylvania. Lynne, where are you tuning in from?
I am tuning in from about 70 miles north of New York City on the Connecticut border in New York in a little town called Wingdale.
Nice, nice. And Shannon, where are you joining us from tonight?
Home in Miami, where it's hot and humid.
Ooh, I like that.
Nice. Yeah. So, Lynne, you've been diagnosed with both cervical cancer and chronic myeloid leukemia, CML. Would you tell us your story? How did you find out that you had these cancers, and just kind of take us on your journey?
Sure.
Thanks.
It's odd. I was fairly sick for quite a while. I just thought, and I'll say first, we're all humans, so TMI doesn't really count. So you're going to hear things you might not, but we're all human. So I just thought I had fibroid problems, which I did. I've always had problems from the time I was very young with my periods, and it was awful. And so at 39, I volunteered. I worked 50 hours a week. I volunteered for a lot of groups actually, but I also volunteered um, for the school with my kids in a lot of things. And I did the band boosters, which was very important in our school. And the one woman who I was more acquaintances with than friends couldn't get her printers to talk, and that's what I did. I do IT. So I said, well, let me come over and I'll fix them for you. And she's like, okay, cool. Yeah. I get there and I have her printers fixed in 5 minutes and we're talking for 3 hours. And she said to me, I don't know you well, but I do know you don't look good. And no one in my family, no one I knew, no friends, nobody said that to me. And she said, I'm not being mean. I just want you to know that you don't look healthy. You don't look like you did a year ago. Something's wrong. You need to call the doctor. And I said, well, I think I need to have an ablation, this and that. It's all woman problems. She's like, well, you're not leaving here. Here's my gynecologist's name. Call, make an appointment. And I didn't. And it's not that I didn't make an appointment because I was afraid. I just didn't have time. You know, you have an 11 and 13-year-old, you're working 50 hours a week and volunteering here and there. So I went to the OBGYN on a Monday. This is 2005. I was 39. And I walked in, I'm like, ablation. I want an ablation. Like, can we do it now? And she just took one look at me and said, we're doing blood work. This, like, she knew just by looking at me, things weren't okay. So I said, okay. So she did blood work, my exam, the whole thing. And then I had my annual the next day. And I told him blood will come across your desk at some point today. That was at 3:30 when I was at work, and I got the phone call that said, you need to come back. And then I knew at that point, this isn't good. Just tell me over the phone. And they don't do that. So I had to go back. It was about 6:30. My doctor, who was my primary forever, I was one of his very first patients. Like at 20, he was right out on his own. He comes out, tears, grabs me by the hand, takes me to his office, and he goes, you have leukemia. We just don't know which one, and you need 2 units of blood, like, immediately. I was like, well, I said, I know that that's a long procedure. You can't just pop 2 units of blood in an hour. I said, that's 6-7 hours. You're trying to admit me into the hospital? He goes, yeah. I said, no, my kids are home alone. I have to go home. He's like, you don't understand. You don't have the time. This needs to get done. And I said, well, I can't just leave my kids sitting there without knowing where I am. I said, I will be here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And he did say to me, if you aren't here, I know where you live and I'm coming to get you. So I went.
Yeah.
He was wonderful. He had everything set up. So that was Tuesday night. So Wednesday I was in the oncology getting my blood. I had iron IV for 12 weeks, the whole thing. And he actually came in to make sure I was there, and every nurse in oncology about fell over, and I'm like, what's going on? They're like, he never comes in here. And I said, why not? And he said, like, well, he loves his patients so much that this hurts him to see his patients going through this. And I said, well, I'm his favorite. So he came to see and make sure I was here. So he stuck around for a few minutes and then he left. And then Thursday was my bone marrow biopsy, and Friday was my appointment with my hemonc, which he had everything so smoothly laid out. I didn't have to do anything. But back then in 2005, Gleevec was just not really out that long. I was really not well. My red count was so low. I was a walking heart attack, and it was just one thing after another. So I basically lived at this hospital in Connecticut, in New Milford, and I was there all the time, and it was a whirlwind. And then it was a couple of weeks later, the doctor said, calls me, the OBGYN, your pap smear came back bad. And I'm like, say what? I'm like, come on. I'm dying of leukemia. I don't need this. And she's like, yeah, we need to do a colposcopy. And I'm like, okay. So we do that. And now my doctors are arguing over what they're going to treat. She wants to treat the cervical cancer. And I'm like, I'm dying of leukemia. You think I'm having kids? Get it out. I don't need this. So that was the conversation that both my doctors had. And then she had me, I was diagnosed in April. This was May. And then she was scheduled me for a hysterectomy in August. Every time I got my period, I needed 2 more units of blood. It just destroyed me. So after about 8 or 10 transfusions, I said, August isn't cutting it. I'm like, did you look at my chart? And she looked at my chart because I had just gotten my period, and it was my red count plummeted. And she's like, Tuesday good? And I'm like, Tuesday's fine. I'm not going anywhere. So then I had that done, and it really, that was the problem with me not getting into, or I leveling off my blood work with my CML. Once I did that, the Gleevec kind of started to work. I mean, it worked. Here I am 19 years later. So yes, obviously it worked. But yeah, it was a surprise. Both of them were a little bit of a surprise. And then having them at the same time was even a bigger surprise. And, having an 11 and a 13-year-old, that, it was a difficult time. But
That's crazy, Lynn. I take my hat off to you, because just the strength that I heard even in you telling your story, but listening to your story and just thinking about what you went through, I can't even imagine having 2 cancers at the same time, because one is hard enough, but you really faced it with, like, not just grit, but humor too, I can tell. So you apparently took part in a clinical trial. What was that like?
I had been on 3 treatments previous. And they all had, the first one was, the side effects were just horrendous. And I was on that for 6 years because that's all there was. The second one was just extremely toxic, and my body just couldn't handle it. So I had to go back to the first one. And then they came out with a new one, Sprycel, and I was on that for 4 years. And I did have side effects. I called them lava bones. If anybody out there goes to Dr. Mauro at Sloan and he says, do you have lava bones? he gives me credit for that. I said, the only thing I can tell you what it feels like is it feels like my bones are lava. That's how I feel. And he was like, wow, he understood that, like the meaning of that, which was so helpful. So then after 4 years on Sprycel, which also gave me oddly medicinal anorexia. I couldn't put weight on for anything. So even my closet now, size 0 to size 12, it's like I don't get rid of anything. It's like I don't know what's gonna happen next. So then I developed a mutation, and it was right before I was going to vacation. It was October of 2014, and we had to figure out what to do. And he said, listen, he had just moved back east from Portland at OHSU, and where I did previously went to see Dr. Drucker, who's the man. Tim knows he's the man. And so I lost my track. So he said, I've got I'm new. I'm trying to get in a clinical trial here. It was started in Australia already. In the United States, it was just starting, and I was the first patient on this side of the country anyway that I know of. Out of 10 people in the country, 37 in the world, 34, 37 in the world to start this drug.
Wow.
And I drew the short straw and got the escalated dose in the trial. And so that meant super high dose. Pancreatitis, liver enzymes were high, kidney enzymes were high, but I fought through it because it still wasn't as bad as the first drug I was on. And I'm like, all right. But when I was first on, like, a few years in, whatever, I'm like, oh my God, these trailblazers on these clinical trials are awesome. I could never do it. Can't do it. Would never do it. And then I got to where, all right, transplant or wait for this trial. And then I was just like, my kids are grown. My kids are going to be 31 and 33 now. And, I wasn't married. And I said, oh, let's do it. Let's go for it. And he was all excited. He's like, yes. And I didn't start until April of 2015. It took that long to get him to get it up and running. And I have a ton of pictures of that first day, because I made sure, I said to him, I said, all right, April 8th it's my 10th cancerversary. That's my 10th anniversary. So let's start on that day. And he's like, yeah, let's do that. He's awesome. So we started on my 10th cancerversary, and it was it's MRI after MRI and CAT scans and everything you do through a trial. The first 3 months you're there all the time. The good thing about a trial is that it was far away, so they would put me up in a hotel overnight. The 2 days I needed to be there, I had a place to stay. So it worked out well, and I'm not that far, and I don't mind taking the train. The one thing that did happen, though, was, my blood pressure went up. That happens to a lot of people that are starting this particular TKI. And my cholesterol. So they put me on Crestor. And I was basically a gym rat at that point, because when I was on Sprycel and lost all that weight, they're like, you need to build muscle mass. You're too thin. I said, I know, I don't feel good at all. And so then it just became habit and a passion. And I can't lift a weight now to save my life, but for other reasons. So I think it was started in April. This was in October or November, and they wanted me on Crestor. So they put me on Crestor, which I really wasn't happy about, because I'm like, I'm on all these meds. I really trying to cut them out, not add them. And so they put me on that. I went to the gym. 3 days later, I look at him like I look like Popeye, and I'm snapping pictures of my arms. And I know Dr. Mauro's looking at his email at midnight. I send him pictures, and I'm like, what the is going on here? And he's like, you need to get down here ASAP. And I remember I said, well, there's a train in like 15 minutes. And he's like, a train? I'm like, all right. So I got my son and my nephew in the car, and I was told Tim, I drove. It's a 5-speed. I've got arms like Popeye, and I'm trying to shift all the way to New York City. But at 1 a.m, there's no traffic, so I was there in an hour and 15 minutes, and parked right outside the urgent care, and in I go. We sat there for 4 hours. I sent them home, and then they admitted me for 7 days. I had rhabdomyolysis, which is your muscles leaching toxins into your bloodstream that shuts down your organs. So that was a 7-day treat at the hospital, and they took me off of Crestor and put me on a non-statin, which is working well, and still have high cholesterol, but it's also hereditary and the drug. But I believe it was one of the very first PCRs. For the first time ever, I was undetectable, and they couldn't see the cancer in my blood. I never thought I would hear those words. Never. Because my response was always enough to keep me alive, to keep me moving. But undetectable are words that every one of us wants to hear. And so for 9 years now, I've been undetectable. And now I'm not on 400 milligrams a day. I'm on 80 milligrams a day and still undetectable. But this
Lynne,
drug,
yeah.
I just wanted to say that this drug is also, it was developed specifically for less side effects. And this is probably why I like it so much. The hardest part is the fasting. No eating 2 hours before and an hour after. They call this it's called a STAMP inhibitor, and it's an acronym, and it's like specifically targeting the ABL myristoyl oil. It's the pocket. So it hits above where the mutations usually stop the medicine from working. So yeah, that it's a different type of treatment, but it's the same theory.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Lynne. And I'm curious, when you found out that you were undetectable, that your cancer was undetectable, what was going through your mind and your heart? Like, what was your gut reaction to that?
Dr. Mauro and I were looking like, what? It was, we both knew, like, he was thrilled and I was surprised, because 10 years of, this yo-yo and this roller coaster, and then he was like, "You're undetectable," and I was like, "That can't be, dude. That can't be."
Right?
And yeah, it was exciting. It was really exciting. And then I'm like, "Well, can we lower it now?" You know. But I was in that trial for 8 years, so that was all up to the pharmaceutical company. You've got to follow all the rules. It's a very strict regimen when you're in a trial. Understandably, I mean, it's a trial. It's what you signed up for. It's why you sign 1,000 pieces of paper and take your chance. And I did, and here I am.
Yay. And could you explain for people, you'd mentioned the letters TKI before, and I'm sure a lot of people in our audience don't know what that means. Can you explain what a TKI is?
It's a tyrosine kinase inhibitor, which what it does is it blocks the protein that is shooting out all the immature white blood cells into your system. CML is a translocation of DNA, and there is no cure. They don't know how to manipulate DNA yet. They're working on it. They have what they call CRISPR now, and I have high hopes that somebody can manipulate DNA and re-translocate the chromosomes that switched. They say it's an environmental leukemia, but this targeted therapy was discovered and really quickly trialed because it was surprisingly saving lives like crazy. And so that was like my trial. 8 years. Gleevec was not an 8-year trial. It was pretty quick, because there are people that are still on it from 24 years ago, or from when they even started the trial, even longer. And so if that wasn't available to me when it was, if I wasn't diagnosed when I was, I wouldn't be here. And the doctor who discovered that drug was my doctor for years. So that's also very exciting. He's a wonderful human being, just a humble, smart genius, and just wanted to help people. And OHSU gave him that opportunity, and there's so many more of us here now.
That's great. That's great. And everybody, we're here at Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer with our guest, Lynne Dagata. Lynne, you mentioned that you have 2 kids and they were on the earlier side when you were diagnosed with cancer. How did you tell your children that you had cancer, and what did that conversation look like?
Yeah, that was tough. I do remember exactly where I was sitting and exactly where they were standing. And at 11 and 13, they know something's up. So I'm like, they're too old not to tell, too young to give them too much information. It's like the birds and the bees. If they don't ask you, don't give them the information they're not asking, because you don't know if it's too much information, until my daughter says, "Are you going to die?" And I was just, that caught me off guard. My kids are very bright, and there would have been no way I could have gotten anything over them, especially as sick as I was on Gleevec. There was just no way. And I just said, listen, we got this. There is now, medication. We're going to get through this. You just have to, help me out a little bit more. You're 11 and 13. You know how to push the buttons on the washing machine. There's cereal, make some eggs, and they had to learn fast how to do all that stuff. And I feel bad because it was 6 years of a really rough treatment, where I continued to work. I continued to volunteer at school. I continued to go to games and practices. I even marched the St. Patrick's Day parade in New York City, and I don't know how I ever managed that. But I did it for my kids. You die for your kids. So I did not. I tried to, as normal as it could be, I tried to keep that there. But they knew they knew deep down inside it wasn't. Anything could happen at any moment. But my doctor, my first oncologist here, had said, "Bring your kids in. I want to talk to them." And I thought that was awesome. Because he said, what are you telling your kids? I think you need to tell your kids they're at that. I said, no, I have to tell them. This is making me too sick. So he goes, all right, if they have questions, he goes, I want you to bring them in. I'll talk to them. We'll answer questions. I'll explain it all to them. And they kind of were quiet, and they didn't know what to say or what to ask. But I still think it was really important and pretty spectacular of him to do. He moved to Vermont. And then I was kind of like, because I did like my little small town hospital, and he fellowed at Dana-Farber, so he knew what he was doing. And he did my first bone marrow biopsy, and I said, oh my God, this is awful. And he's like, yeah, I used to do this in med school for $500. I said, so on purpose? He's like, yeah, I needed the money. I was in med school. I needed, I said, that's crazy. So he was probably, I've had 5, and he did probably one of the best. Well, I'm not going to say best, because they are pretty barbaric, but the least painful was from him, because he had gone through it himself. So he knew, and that was helpful. So then he moved and sent me somewhere else. I'm not going to name names. And he doubled my Gleevec to 800 milligrams, and it nearly killed me. And for 2 weeks, I tried to email him and call him and tell him, I'm dying. I can't do this. And he never returned my calls or anything. I was nothing but a number. He couldn't be bothered. This man was a specialist too. That's frightening to me. So I'd come home, did my research, find Dr. Drucker online, and I email him in Oregon, 3 hours behind, and I'm like, tell him the whole story. In 5 minutes, I get an email back from him. And anybody out there, if you have CML, you would know how busy of a man this guy is. He's a researcher. He's everything. And to answer me in 5 minutes without even knowing me or anything, I was like, this is the guy. That's it. And he said to me, he goes, you come out here, get out here right now. And 2 weeks later, I was in Oregon. And he said, yeah, you should have been retested. This is stop taking, like he told me through the email, stop taking the 800 milligrams, get back down to 400. Well, when you get out here, we'll all go over everything. And so that was that. And I flew out there to see him. And then he worked with another oncologist here, who was great and was pleased to work with somebody who knew what they were doing, because she didn't have any CML patients. I was the only CML patient for miles around. I hadn't met anybody in 5 years. So,
Wow. I'm just amazed by your story. Tim and I know, and I mean, anybody who's gone through cancer, self-advocacy saves lives. So at what point in your cancer journey did you realize you need to advocate for yourself?
The moment that doctor wouldn't return my calls, I said, this is unacceptable. It was bad enough fighting with insurance companies. And for me to go to OHSU in Oregon, they weren't my insurance company at the time wasn't going to pay for it. So I said, yeah, the heck you're not. So I get the book, your health insurance pamphlet, and I am going through that thing like a fine tooth comb. And I see OHSU, approved transplant facility. So I gotcha. And I got them. They denied me 3 times. And I said, right here. And they said, oh, okay, you can go. Not a lot of people have the tenacity, the patience, and I've been there. You just want to throw your hands up in the air and say, I just can't do this anymore. But you can't. This is your life. This disease can take a 180 at any given time for anybody. You might think you're smooth sailing and something could sneak up. I mean, it's less and less now with what they're learning. It's CML. The world of CML now is in the 20 years that I've been, almost 20 years that I've been doing this, is the progression is incredible. Just with the treatments, with what they're learning and the trials and how low can you really go without getting a mutation? When do you switch? They're just, the strides are remarkable. So, yeah.
That's so true, Lynn. I was diagnosed in 2006, and so I totally get where you're coming from in terms of there's been so many advancements in terms of treatment since then. I think there's something like 6 options now.
Yeah, and 2 or 3 in the pipeline.
That's really great. That's really great. So this month is National Cancer Survivors Month, and you're a cancer survivor. So I'm curious, how has being a survivor, has it changed your outlook on life at all? Have you changed any of your daily routines? Have you changed anything to maintain your health, things like that?
It was hard in the beginning on that first treatment. And then when I was on Sprycel and started going to the gym, I did really, it hooked me. I think at 49 years old, I was in the best shape of my life. And I went maybe 4 or 5 times a week. And it helped your brain. It helps everything. 2 years ago, I found out I have unrelated heart disease. I have a rare, they think I had rheumatic fever as a child, which that's pretty much eradicated. So I'm not sure what happened there, or strep throat that was untreated. So it's mitral valve stenosis. So I have that now, and I've had COVID 8 times. So I have fluid around my heart, and I get very tired very quickly. I can't walk too far. And so this really is aggravating for somebody who was going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week at one point. And now just walking to go get my mail or to take the garbage out, I'm like, oh my God, I want to just lay flat out in my driveway. But I think it's here's the thing that's bothersome, and I don't know if it bothers you or not. I mean, I don't want to look sick. Nobody wants to look sick, but people go, "Oh, you're cured. That's great. You look fabulous." Right? And I'm like, "No, I'm not cured. I still have cancer. It's not going anywhere, but you don't look sick." Ugh. That's that's that is a don't ever say that to anybody. Just don't. It's not it. Like I said, I don't want to look sick, but don't stick your head in my window if I have a handicap plate card up and tell me, well, you don't look disabled. I learned that because I'm not going to lie. Pre-diagnosis, I would be like, that person doesn't look disabled. Why are they parking there? Like, oh, I don't get that. Now I'm like, oh, bad girl. I get it now. I get it. And you just with your invisible disease thing before, I also have 2 autoimmune diseases, and that I don't even treat them because they're so in the background with everything else that goes on that when I get dry eyes, I have Sjogren's syndrome, so everything's dry, and I'm smearing coconut oil all over everything, and I'm like, oh well. To me, that's kind of in the background now, but it's all part of my disability, and I worked since I was 10 years old, so that is extremely difficult to not. I mean, I work part-time. I was working part-time. I was doing mentoring for a company from Israel, Belong. Did you hear of Belong Life ever, Tim?
Oh yeah, I actually spoke to
It's an
somebody
app.
a few years ago from there. Yeah.
Yep. So I worked on that for a while. I enjoyed that, and I get probably 5, 6, 7 messages on the daily from other patients who know my name and my story, and they are like, "Hey, I have a question for you," and I'm like, I to me that is my therapy. I want to help people. So yeah. I don't know. I just that is my thing. I will do it whether I'm sick or not. And I ran support groups, and I did them in New York City. I did them here in the Hudson Valley. Did them in Connecticut. The ones I did in the city, my doctor would be like, "Oh, can I come?" He'd show up with his laptop and a PowerPoint presentation. I love Dr. Mauro. It's the greatest. But I haven't done them in quite a while, but I have thought about starting back up and doing them again because I really enjoy seeing people who have not met another patient before, because when I was diagnosed, like I said, it was 5 years before I met somebody, and that makes for a very lonely world.
I totally get that. And I didn't meet anybody for 15 years after my diagnosis. So I
That's a
resonate with
long
what you were
time.
saying. It is a long time. And also what you were saying about, the fact that CML is an invisible illness. And I know and I'm curious if you feel the same. I oftentimes feel misunderstood because people are like, you're good, you look good,
Yep.
and then like, depending on your journey, and in my journey, my number is like, I was in CML for like 15 years, and then I was out of CML for like a year and a half, and then I'm back in CML. So they're like, your numbers go up and down, you're good, right?
Right.
Like, what's your reaction? Do you ever have people that say things like that to you?
Yeah, 100%. And it, it's just like, yeah, there, I mean, there's just a lot of people that don't like me explaining now, and I'm very happy to explain all of this, so that it makes sense to people. Uh, but yeah, I mean, my first 10 years, I don't think I got below 1% You know what that means. There's a line that there's all these steps you need to get to actually be considered in what they called major molecular response, which is where they want you. And I just never got there for 10 years. And that's why undetectable was as incredible as it was for me. I just never got there. And so yeah. And I see it now, in some of the groups, and I tell people, like, it's okay. You're okay. If you don't have what they call blasts, which is what is the danger.
Right.
And you have, I always highly suggest a specialist, even if it's just once. But yeah, it's difficult to explain to people that it's like, still after, almost 20 years, I go get my blood drawn to see how I'm doing, and I have to wait 2 weeks every 3 months, and I'm like, oh, is this the time? Is this going to be the time? I mean, it's been 9 years. Why would this be the time? It doesn't matter. It's still up here. It's still like anything can change. And we just don't know when. It's the nature of this crazy beast.
It's crazy to me because I talk to Tim all the time and I tell him, like, cancer is already a mind F, right? I'm not going to curse tonight.
Yes. Yeah. You're not?
I'm not. I'm going to be good tonight, right, Tim? But
I had to promise Tim I wouldn't swear.
You do you.
It's such a mind frig, right? I mean, the F word I was going to use. It's a total mind frig. And I mean, at least with my cancer was stage 3C. It did not show on a scan, but it was found during surgery. But at least it's visible. But you guys, like, cancer is already an invisible illness, but your cancer is like invisible. So
yeah, you can't cut it out. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just battling numbers. And I'm always telling Tim, like, I don't know how he does it, because that would be such a mindfuck for me. I said it this time. But it would be.
It is truly a mindfuck, because it's not it's not a solid tumor. You don't get to cut it out and move on.
Right.
It's always there. It's just sneaking around inside of you, waiting to get by. There's people that are just so lucky and have been off treatment, which is a great thing. That was a trial going treatment free.
Right.
So once you get into deep, like undetectable for 2 years, they'll stop the medication and see how long you can go, because they think that once you get into that deep response, you can go years without taking medication. And who wouldn't want to do that? I mean, it's poison. Let's just be straight. It's poison. And, it keeps us alive, but at what cost? I mean, there's always side effects. There's a couple of them that cause heart issues and QT prolongation, and there's always things you have to worry about, and you have to be aware of that. And when people say, I just listen to what my doctor says, I don't, and I that makes me nuts. I'm like, no. I said, you need to go, if you're going to Dr. Google, you need to make sure you're looking at a reliable source. You need to make sure the date is current and the author knows what they're talking about and is somebody that has a name of recognition. And that's where you're going to get the best of information.
Right. It is important to have credible sources, and a lot of people make that mistake. So, Lynne, can you tell us about the person who saved your life?
Yeah, that was printer lady, Connie. I probably never would have gone if she didn't push me to call her gynecologist. I would have just been like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then my doctor telling me, he's like, you don't understand. You don't have the time. Like, you don't have any red cells. You're dying. You're a walking time bomb. And I'm like, oh, oh boy, I guess I'm glad I called. So yeah, and her daughter at the time was in, I think 6th grade was her daughter, ran a Dress Down Friday campaign for me, and all the teachers had to pay $5 to dress down on Friday, and then she gave me the proceeds to go to my health costs and everything, and it was just sweet. And then all the cards and everything, and that was her daughter, so it was just things like that. It's just sometimes I'll throw $2 on the Powerball just because I have a dream of I want to start a nonprofit, and I want to do, and don't anybody steal this, I want to do a Make-A-Wish for adults. I just think that children with cancer is this, don't get me started. I'll say things that I shouldn't say. It's awful. But I also don't feel 58. So it's pretty awful for me too. And I have things that I want to do and I can't because this disease has pretty much, I'm medically destitute. I don't have the money to do the things that I'd like to do. Although I did go see the Rolling Stones last week and I'm going again next week. But
that's awesome. One of my friends went and saw it as well. That's awesome.
Oh yeah,
Did you have a good
MetLife.
time? Yeah,
I had a fabulous time, and then I'm going to Philly on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday because the whole group of us that go, there's a pre-party the night before, there's a tailgate party before the concert, and then the concert, and then the after. Yeah, I'll be in bed Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So that's what happens to me. If I go and do something that I want to do for fun and enjoyment for myself, I pay for it.
Mhm.
When I went to the concert in New York, my feet swelled up so badly. I looked like Shrek. This is right up my legs. I felt like taking a knitting needle and just like popping them. They were horrible 2 nights in a row. And I'm like, okay, that could be my heart. That could be the TKI. I just don't know, but elevate them and get them better and then off the next night. So I know how to plan my activities. I know, okay, I'm going to do this today and tomorrow. So that means the next day and the day after that, don't plan anything. I might be okay, but I might also just be flat out.
Yeah, I go through that too, so I get it.
Yeah.
That crash. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Plus I'm 58. So, kind of getting up there and then, add all these drugs and now I'm on all this heart medicine. And so, yeah, it's just the combo, it's tough, but I look good. So I've been told. You don't look sick. But
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We're here at Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer with our guest Lynne Dagata, and Aaron Gibson made it. So welcome, Aaron. And Hassani is here. He says hello, everyone. And yeah, all of you who are here live or on the replay, thanks for being here. Lynne, I'm curious, what do you think as a cancer survivor? What are some of the biggest myths about being a cancer survivor?
Excuse me. Well, let's see. Hold on. I think I might have sorry. I have to write things down because if I don't,
No,
I
you're
have brain
good.
fog.
You're
So
good. Yeah.
okay. I think I kind of said it when I said it's a blood disease and it's not a tumor and you can't cut it out. You get, people walk up to you and like, oh, it's wonderful to see you so healthy and great. And I'm like, yeah, but I have 2 autoimmune diseases, heart disease, leukemia, I have Sjogren's, I have all these other problems that you're not seeing and you're not in my body, so you don't know how I feel. So, when you go through traditional IV chemo, you lose your hair. Well, I have, like, my hair is gone. It's just a mess, but I lost a lot of hair. But when somebody is going through traditional IV treatment, it's obvious. You can tell, And as sad that that's sad. It's difficult. It's hard. And hopefully that person gets through it and can carry on, and it's gone. They ring the bell and they're great. And then they have their checkups to make sure they don't get it back. We don't get to ring that bell. Although if I go treatment free and I stay undetectable, I'm going to make him let me ring the bell because I
Heck
consider by
yeah.
definition, like I have a little bit of I don't know if you want to call this a myth about cancer. It's more of a myth in CML. It's a disagreement between doctors, patients, and other doctors where once you get undetectable, they call you in remission. And I'm like, I'm not in remission. I'm still popping chemo pills. It's not remission. I'm in
Right.
response. If
Yeah.
I stop taking it and I'm undetectable, then you can call it remission because Webster's dictionary defines it that way. It's any drug you take to keep your cancer in control. So
Yeah.
that kind of that's one of the things that bugs me too. But yeah, the response remission. I'm like, you're not in remission. Somebody said one day, 3 days ago, my doctor told me I was cured. I'm like, you're cured? Like what happened that I don't know? Like, what do you mean you're
Right.
cured? Yeah, I'm undetectable, so I'm cured. I'm like, you're not cured. I said, you just got a false sense of safety, lady. Like, you need to make sure you still take your medication and go to your doctor and get your blood work because you have I could just look fast forward 6 months where she thought she was cured and would just, everything would go awry on her. And it scares me. And I try to stay in these groups and I just lurk. And then when I see some snake oil salesman or, somebody throwing out there some stupid advice and I just try to get in there and say, listen, this is what I think, in my opinion, after all these years of going through this, this is what I would do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Lynne, I am really happy that you have defined that difference between remission, the fact that cure doesn't really exist. Those are kind of sticking points for me too. So I totally get it. I just say that I'm NED, no evidence of disease. I still have
Yeah.
a high risk of getting a new primary cancer. I've never had a clean colonoscopy. So although I probably am a low risk of recurrence at 12 years, I still have a high risk of getting cancer again.
Right.
So I just use the term NED, and you're right, getting that false sense of security, I'm terrified of that. So I still see my oncologist every year, do a colonoscopy every year. I make sure I
Yep.
get my blood work done and MRI. So I totally agree with you. It is so important that we continue our surveillance as survivors, and we also do our other cancer testing, because if we don't screen for other cancers, we need to know that we still have a risk of other cancers too. I'm sorry, but there's not a one
Absolutely.
quota, right? You had two. There's no quota for how many cancers you can have in your lifetime, unfortunately. So having one doesn't just say, oh, you're not going to get another one. So I'm
Exactly.
really big on that. So I'm glad you
Be
brought
vigilant. Yeah. You have to be vigilant.
me too.
And I do believe with CML, we're at a higher risk of a secondary cancer, or for
Right.
me, the
Right.
trifecta. I mean, right now, I mean, what is it? 1 in 5 people end up with some kind of cancer anyway. I mean, it's a scary number.
Mhm.
It's just scary.
It
And then
is.
you find out this, like, back when we were diagnosed, it's this rare disease that, oh, well, you could die. What? And I really didn't think I would make it. I didn't. And to have 19 extra years, I've made peace with the fact that if I don't live to be 80, I'm all right with that, because I had 19 years I never thought I was going to have. And hopefully 19 more. And, that would be great. But being able to be fortunate enough to take advantage of what's out there now, I'm lucky, very lucky, fortunate.
Yeah, and I wish you many, many more years as well.
Thank you.
I'm really inspired and impressed by you, and I'm just glad that you're here tonight and that you're here in the world. Like you're paying it forward in so many ways, and I love you for it already.
Thanks.
So, Lynn, we're going to ask you the hardest question tonight, or well, I'm going to ask you the hardest question tonight.
Okay.
What is your one word perspective on cancer?
Journey. It's a journey. Everybody's journey is different. We all have a different journey. We all have a different reaction to whatever cancer, whatever treatment. Some breeze through, some suffer through. For me, it was a roller coaster. Some people go on the one drug and just bop around, go to work their 60 hours a week and go here, go there, go everywhere. Makes me a little envious, but just it is a journey.
It is. I like that word. I think battle is so annoying.
Yeah, no, as much as I did battle, I call it my journey. Yeah.
That's a beautiful word. Tim, you want to go ahead or you want me to go first?
You could go.
I have two tonight. When one is adventure, going from your journey, as well as moments. And I think what we need to do is, although cancer is a journey, we need to find moments to also find time to adventure and enjoy new things and do self-care, take walks, enjoy nature, enjoy the sunlight, the wind, the leaves, the butterflies, the birds, all of it. Moments of happiness, moments of joy, moments of humor, along those times that we do adventure off of that journey with cancer. I think it's really important to find that that balance between the two of journey and adventure, and that they can also be one and the same. You can do both at the same time.
I do find, though, that my awareness is heightened about what's around me, like right now, like which side? Dragonfly. I have like 10 dragonfly tattoos. Dragonflies just fascinate me now. They always have, but now I'm a nutcase. I get my big camera out and I'll go and zoom right in and I'm all over the place, like just taking nature pictures. And yeah, I think I appreciate the small things a lot more now.
I agree.
Stop and smell the roses.
Did the tattoos come after your diagnosis, Lynn?
Yeah, actually, I think I have 10.
Wow.
And I think I started getting them. Maybe I think I got one or two before, and then the rest were all after. Yeah.
Mine was after. My two were after. So
yeah. I have a big back piece, that's a bouquet of flowers. It's done like a watercolor, and it's wrapped in an orange awareness ribbon.
I love that.
Cool. Yeah. It's my favorite.
So my word, Lynn, I was going to use journey and I was going to use roller coaster, but you use both. But it's the same idea, right? Like your whole journey is not the same experience, right? Like you're diagnosed and then whatever you go through, or depending on the person, and at some point you may be cancer free or NED or whatever word you want to use, but then you might be in it again. So it's like, how do you deal with I guess, like, how do you deal with the fact that your cancer could come back, or you could get another cancer? I mean, you had 2 cancers at one time.
Yeah. I kind of just think I am more, I'm at the doctor all the time. So I know my blood work is always being tested. So that's always a good thing. If my white count starts going up or the red count, and, there was a point where they thought I had polycythemia vera because my red counts were going up for over a year. And Dr. Mauro, that's one of his specialties. And he was like, I got to check you for that JAK2 gene. I'm like, oh, what? Something else? Come on. But I kind of like joke around and laugh like that. But that possibility is always there. But I feel that right now I'm in super awesome hands with everybody at Sloan that I go to. My cardiologist, the GI, my oncologist, everybody, my psychiatrist, everybody's there. I'm so comfortable there. I love it there. There's not anybody I've met there that hasn't. No one has a mean bone. They're just, everybody's pleasant with a smile, right down to the doormen, uh, cafeteria. They come when you're in the hospital to wear tuxedo tops. They bring you your dinner, and I'm like, and of course you said
Wow.
humor, Shannon, and I was like laughing because when I was in the hospital and the young man who brought me my dinner every night and I would just joke around and I'd be like, oh, okay, where's your you need a napkin on your arm. Come on. Where's my champagne? So we would joke around, and humor was a huge part of my the beginning of my recovery and trying to get better. Humor is like I said, people would just look at me like, you just, what did you just say that? I'm like, I'm allowed. You got a joke? Make a joke. I'm
Yeah.
good with it. Yeah, humor's it's my jam. Yeah.
Exactly.
You have to use humor. If you can't use humor, it's just going to eat you up, and you can get caught in that. And I have, like, my advice is you can take a day, stay in bed, have a pity party, cry, do whatever you want, feel sorry for yourself one day. And then tomorrow you get up, you put your big girl pants or your big boy pants on, and you go do what you have to do. And that's it. And I think that's cathartic. You need to do that sometimes, but you can't wallow in it. It's something that you can do, like, maybe every 6 months. And if it makes you feel better and you get it all out and it's like, oh, nobody cares, and then,
Right.
all right, well, tomorrow I got to go do this, that, and the other thing. And then you just get up and go do your stuff. And I think that tends to help me sometimes. And I don't know why, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you don't get stuck in that cycle.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Lynn, we're so honored to have you on the show and share your story and perspectives. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this, and I enjoyed getting to know you, Tim, through our projects that are outside of your perspectives here. And yeah, it was a pleasure. Pleasure
Same.
meeting both of you.
It was an honor having you on here, Lynn. Thank you for being here tonight.
Here comes my cat.
Oh, there's your cat. What's your cat's name?
Hunter S. Thompson.
Hello, Hunter S. Thompson.
Yes, he's like, look at there
Oh
goes
my
my
gosh,
water, and there
I
goes the
love
cat.
it. All right. Well, on that note, Lynn, thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on.
Oh my gosh. Just in time, we got the cat appearance, which is awesome. I mean, spontaneous things that happen on live stream shows are just so fun. So Shannon, how are you feeling after that conversation?
I'm really glad that I showed up tonight despite not feeling well. It was also a great way to come back. I've really missed being here.
We missed having you here.
I know, but I really need that mental health break. It was
I know you do.
needed.
I
Yeah.
get it. I really do.
I know. But yeah, I'm just glad to be back. I'm really glad that I pushed through not feeling well. I feel a lot better, as I always do after I show up, right?
Good. I see what you did there with show up. I saw that. I heard that.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Yes, I'm feeling inspired by
Same.
Lynn, for
And
sure.
hopeful. I mean, 19 years is freaking amazing.
That is freaking all the F words amazing. Yes, for sure. Yes. And speaking of amazing, we're always looking for amazing guests, right, Shannon?
We are always looking for guests, just like Lynn and all the amazing guests that we've had. Tim, you've been batting 100% on your guests. Or 113%.
113 episodes and going. Yes.
So anyone who's a survivor, family member, author, cancer nonprofit organization, medical professionals, anyone with a perspective on cancer who has been impacted in any way, please send me or Tim a message. if you'd like to be on a guest, if you'd like to be a guest on the show. And next week's guest is chronic myeloid leukemia survivor Michelle Tackerhart. I hope I did not butcher that because I hate when people butcher my name. How do you pronounce it, Tim?
I'm not sure, but she's also involved with our group, me and Lynn and other survivors. So
Awesome.
yes, and
Michelle,
Michelle's
I
awesome.
butchered
I
your
met
name.
her in person. What's that?
I'm not saying, Michelle, if I butchered your last name, I'm really sorry. It's either Tackerhart or Tasherhart, but I'm sorry if I even butchered it even after trying again. So just know, I hate when people butcher my name, and I'm really sorry.
Yes, and Michelle is awesome. I had the honor of meeting Michelle recently for a few weekends at this undisclosed location that I'm not sure if I can say or not. And yeah, so and also I was saying earlier about the monthly show that started last night. If anybody's interested in being a guest on Perspectives on Invisible Illnesses, the next show is July 2nd. I do have some people who are interested already, but always looking for guests to be on that show as well. So reach out to me for that as well, because you can never do enough live streaming, right, Shannon?
Yeah, but it's really a full-time job. So
It
I
is
don't
a
know how
full-time
you
job.
give it energy.
I love live streaming. This is my happy place. This is a safe space where we can just be ourselves and share our stories and do our thing. So that's why I started another show, and also just feeling misunderstood. We were talking tonight with Lynn about the perspective of CML being an invisible illness. Mm-hmm. And I often feel misunderstood around that. And I thought, that a show is really needed for people to have a safe space around whether it's a certain kind of cancer that's invisible, whether it's depression, whether it's whatever it is, either mental or physical, for people to support each other in that space as well. So anyway, I digress because I could just keep talking all night. I'm not really sure why. Lynn is saying thank you to everyone. It was a pleasure to be here. It was a pleasure to have you here, Lynn. And also, I want to say, see you all next week for the next episode of Showing Up, Perspectives on Cancer. And it is that time to, what are we going to do, Shannon? What are we going to do? We're going to dance, right?
Is this dance. I don't know if I'm dancing.
This is the Tim dance. This is how, yes, Lynn got it. Lynn got it. Here we go. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.